My name is David Daniel Ball, and these are the headlines for Thursday, January the 22nd, 2009. White House pay freeze, President Obama gets to work. Strike set to ground Australian flights. Woman arrested over $42,000 mailbox fraud. Rent still rising in Sydney, but Darwin still top. Rudd starts Big Business Crisis Fund. Police seize $5 million art haul. A firebug charged with starting Sydney bushfires. Obama tackles grim crises on day one. Obama takes first step to closing Gitmo. Nasty computer worm infects millions of PCs. From news.com.au, clerics say it's okay to rape and beat your wife, and pawn shops win as an economy sours. In comments from Alan Jones, consumers still hit the hardest as prices drop. Prices are dropping worldwide, yet the Reserve Bank is considering dudding Australian consumers by reining in interest rate cuts. From Piers Akerman, Barack Obama's actions must speak louder than flowery contrivances. While it may seem uncharitable to be critical of a new US president on his inauguration day, it did seem rather incongruous that Barack Hussein Obama was sworn in by US Chief Justice John Roberts, whose nomination the former one-term senator had opposed. And in all truth, I think Obama will not be judged on his actions until after he has failed as a president, possibly for the second term. The liberal press sustained the attack on President Bush for 8 years over phony Gore failing to behave responsibly. In some ways, the problems the US has experienced are directly related to Gore's divisive, wrong-headed stance. Let the healing begin is the cry used by Obama's supporters, but they're still backstabbing and they're still snubbing. I think the words of Obama are frequently fine. I think his actions are despicable. Sadly, I think Obama has failed already. The world just doesn't see it yet. From Tim Blair, masked for Hamas. A witness tells of events at last Sunday's Nazi-enhanced Hamas rally in Melbourne. The victory of Palestine Islam, depending upon who you were eavesdropping on, over the Jews, I didn't hear anyone mention Israel, became the conversation topic that was floated about the most, which isn't surprising when you look at some of the protesters. And I've got a couple of photographs here by Colonel Robert Neville. Nice shirt, sir. Way to work that swastika right in there. The rally also featured commies for Allah. It's good to see that the communists have finally gotten over that religion problem of theirs. Now it's apparently the Semtex of the masses. From another photographer. Oh, sweet, some retro Jew pig hate. By the way, if you doubted that this rally was pro-Hamas, and some do, listen to one of the protest organizers. The Palestinian people chose resistance when they elected democratically Hamas, and they were punished for it. The audience cheers. Greens were there as well, and so was the wicked Santa Jew. He's making a list, he's checking it twice. A similar rally took place in Sydney on the same day as Romeo Mike reports. A whole 8 seconds is all the ABC gave yesterday's anti-Israel protest in Sydney, which is odd given how extensively they like to cover any dissenting congregation. A couple of Greens picketing the PM's office, they're there. A handful of socialist shriekers holding up traffic, it's news. 3,000 turn out with Israeli flags bearing swastikas in place of the star, so not mentionable. However, the record requires it, so downplay it. Also, via Romeo Mike, a gardener at Sydney's Hyde Park has complained weekend protesters caused several $1,000s worth of damage. Thousands of people marched to the park yesterday to demonstrate against Israel's military offensive in Gaza. Sydney City's Council head gardener for Hyde Park, Nathan Gray, says the demonstrators trampled over several flower beds and left rubbish around the gardens. There's a fair bit of damage done, he said. All the annual beds that we are probably supposed to have ready for the Australia Day celebrations have all been crushed. How perfectly appropriate. Upset and amazed. Former Age Editor-in-Chief Michael Gowanda on his old newspaper's Michael Bachmann debacle. I think the real question here is what publication of this article says about the prevailing journalistic culture at the Age. The apology is a non-apology, really. It apologizes for the hurt it caused some people, especially Jews. This is a Clayton's apology, the sort of instance that Wayne Carey once offered up when he apologized for grabbing a young woman's breast. The apology states that the Age does not hold the views expressed in the article. I assume the Age publishes many op-ed pieces that do not express the views of the Age. What this apology seems to be aimed at doing is limit the damage to the paper from the publication of this piece. What I want to know is how it came to be published and how the Age has reached the point where racist rubbish like this gets published, and what the new editor-in-chief intends to do about changing this culture. Good luck. Further thoughts from Liberal Senator Michael Ronaldson. In the world, according to Backman, the true cause of terrorism is resistance to terrorism. I am reminded of Winston Churchill's famous definition of an appeaser as someone who feeds the crocodile in the hope of being eaten last. And the columnist neglects to explain how Israel is supposed to befriend a Hamas government whose covenant incites the murder of every Jew on the face of the earth. I have great respect for the Age, but in this instance, an apology is not sufficient. Instead, Backman's services must be terminated immediately. I think we're already past that point. Meanwhile, a source close to the staff at the Age said employees were upset and amazed the article had gone to print. Except, one presumes, all the employees who were involved in its publication. Ice G, amused by several cold snaps during this era of alleged global warming, Alaska's Craig Compo responds by unveiling a 5-ton Al Gore ice sculpture. The giant frozen owl, only slightly heavier than the real thing, will be displayed in Fairbanks as part of a hospital charity drive through March, or until it melts. Gore support is melting at the same time. Al Gore's side may be coming to power in Washington, but they appear to be losing the battle on the idea that humans are to blame for global warming. 44% of US voters now say long-term planetary trends are the cause of global warming, compared to 41% who blame it on human activity. In April of last year, 47% of Americans blamed human activity versus 34% who viewed long-term planetary trends as the culprit. But the numbers have been moving in the direction of planetary trends since then. You can even throw it under a bus. It's the most exciting commemorative plate collection ever. These exciting times of change deserve to be commemorated with an equally exciting commemorative plate collection, introducing the President Barack Obama inaugural commemorative paper plate. This plate is a treasured collective work of art that can be proudly displayed on shelves, tabletops at the office, or can be hung on a wall or even on the refrigerator. Roasts in the machine. Tired of seeing all its warming predictions be blown away? Britain's Met Office takes action. For the Met Office, the forecast is considerable embarrassment. It has spent £33 million on a new supercomputer to calculate how climate change will affect Britain, only to find the new machine has a giant carbon footprint of its own. The new supercomputer, which will become operational later this year, will emit 14,400 tons of carbon dioxide a year, said Dave Britton, the Met Office's chief press officer. This is equivalent to the carbon dioxide emitted by 2,400 homes, generating an average of 6 tons each a year. They'll get Britain hotter even if they have to do it themselves. And Misery Land, Australia's latest tourism campaign reviewed by Washington's Lee M. This morning, I saw the strangest promotional spot I've ever seen or heard produced. A woman picks up a phone and a male voice advises, "You're not the woman I married." And then the woman starts to cry. A creepy little kid with an Australian accent appears from a dark void and tells the woman, "Sometimes we have to get lost to find ourselves. Sometimes we gotta go walkabout." Environmentalism you can believe in. The International Conservation Caucus Foundation didn't exactly load carbon it at Monday's inauguration. Roses will be flown in from Ecuador. Marinated beef is being flown in from Texas to Virginia, where it will be grilled and then trucked to the auditorium. The organizers recruited the Boys Choir of Kenya to serenade the guests. "We're not into symbolism," David H. Barron, the caucus president, said unapologetically. "We are focused on a much bigger impact, and they're achieving it even more impressively." The event was sponsored by ExxonMobil.